Most of us know the big stories from Jesus' final week in Jerusalem. The Last Supper, the crucifixion, all of that. But what about the journey to Jerusalem? That final fateful road trip was absolutely packed with some of his most radical teachings, a mind-blowing miracle, and the very moments that basically sealed his fate. So today we're diving deep into that pivotal journey.
So yeah, this is the big question, right? This wasn't just a casual walk from one town to the next. No way. This was a deliberate march straight into a confrontation that was going to change everything. So what exactly happened on that road that made everything that came after in Jerusalem, well, inevitable? Okay, so first things first. We have to get our heads around the fact that this journey was a choice. It was a conscious, calculated decision. After kind of laying low for a while, away from the center of conflict, Jesus makes a decisive turn, and he heads right for the place where his enemies were the strongest. So, picture this. He's been teaching in a region called Perea, which is across the Jordan River. It was a relatively safe place to be. But then he just turns. He sets his face toward Judea and Jerusalem. And he absolutely knows who's waiting for him there and the kind of danger he's walking into. And yet, he goes anyway. That one decision to head straight into hostile territory is what kicks this whole entire sequence into motion. And this is where you can just feel the tension ratchet up. Some Pharisees come to him, and maybe they're trying to scare him off, who knows, and they warn him, hey, Herod Antipas wants to kill you. But look at his response. He's not deterred at all. He basically says, my story doesn't end here with Herod. It ends in Jerusalem. He sees this path as fulfilling a kind of prophetic destiny. The danger is very real, but for him, the purpose is totally non-negotiable.
So, as Jesus is making this high-stakes journey, he's not just walking, he is constantly teaching. And the lessons he's giving out on this road trip are some of his most challenging ever, directly taking on the social and religious rules of the day.
The setting here is just perfect. He's at a dinner party, and he's the guest of a prominent religious leader. You'd think he'd be on his best behavior, right? Nope. He uses the occasion to talk about real humility and this totally radical kind of hospitality, telling them to invite the poor and the outcast, not just the people who can pay you back. I mean, right away, he's setting a tone that he's here to turn the whole established order upside down.
And he gets even more direct with the crowds that are following him around. He tells them flat out to count the cost of being his disciple, and he gives them this three-part challenge. First, he has to be the absolute top priority. Second, using this great analogy of a tower builder, he says you've got to know if you can actually finish what you start. And third, like a king going to war, you have to be realistic about the fight ahead. He is not sugarcoating this at all. He is demanding total, absolute commitment.
Now, as you can imagine, the religious leaders start grumbling about him hanging out with people they called sinners, like tax collectors. And his response? He tells this absolutely brilliant trilogy of parables. You've got the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the prodigal son. In every single story, the focus is on the incredible value of the one thing that was lost and the massive party when it's found. The point he's making is huge. He's completely redefining God's priorities, shifting the focus away from the people who think they have it all together and toward the outcasts. Okay, so Jesus is teaching these radical ideas, and you can feel the tension just building and building. But then an event happens that pushes his opponents from just grumbling on the sidelines to creating an active, official plot to have him killed.
He shows up in Bethany, a little village just a couple of miles from Jerusalem, the very heart of religious power. And here he performs what is, without a doubt, his most public and undeniable miracle. He gets word that his friend, Lazarus, is sick. But he waits. He deliberately waits. So by the time he gets there, Lazarus has been dead and in a tomb for 4 days.
And this just lays out the cause and effect perfectly. Jesus calls Lazarus out of the tomb alive. The news spreads like wildfire. I mean, this isn't some quiet healing in a far-off village. This is a public resurrection right on Jerusalem's doorstep. The reaction is immediate. The Sanhedrin, the Jewish High Council, calls an emergency meeting. And the outcome of that meeting? A formal, official decision to arrange for Jesus' death. This miracle was the final straw.
And this is the moment it all crystallizes. The high priest, Caiaphas, he frames the whole decision in these cold political terms. He's worried that Jesus' growing popularity is going to provoke the Romans to crack down and destroy their nation. So he argues, let's just sacrifice this one guy, Jesus, for the greater good of keeping things as they are. It's a statement of pure political strategy that, ironically, the Gospels present as an unwitting prophecy.
And here is a piece of irony that is just stunning. A little while earlier, Jesus had told a parable about a rich man and a poor man, also named Lazarus. In the story, the rich man begs for someone to be sent back from the dead to warn his brothers, But he's told, nope, they wouldn't believe it anyway. Well, now a real Lazarus has been raised from the dead, and what do the authorities do? Exactly what the parable predicted. Instead of believing, they double down. They decide they now have to kill not only Jesus, but Lazarus too. It's unbelievable.
So, the death plot is official. It's on the books. But as Jesus makes his final approach to Jerusalem through the city of Jericho, his encounters just keep revealing the true nature of his upside-down kingdom. And it was so different from what everyone was expecting.
This gives us such a fantastic contrast. First, he meets a rich young ruler, a guy who is pious, respected, he has it all. But when Jesus tells him to sell his possessions, the man just can't do it. He clings to his wealth and he walks away sad. Then in Jericho, Jesus meets Zacchaeus, a chief tax collector, a man everyone despised as a corrupt traitor. And yet Zacchaeus joyfully welcomes Jesus, and without even being asked, pledges to give half his wealth away and repay everyone he cheated. The outcast finds salvation, while the respectable insider just walks away.
And you see this pattern over and over again. He heals 10 lepers, but only one, a Samaritan, a person who was a double outcast, comes back to say thank you. When his own disciples try to shoo kids away, Jesus welcomes them, saying the kingdom belongs to people just like them. And as he's leaving Jericho, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus screams out for mercy, and Jesus stops everything to heal him. The point is so clear. He's showing, again and again, that his kingdom is for the marginalized, the humble, and the desperate, not the powerful and the self-sufficient. But, it wasn't just the religious leaders who were getting it wrong. Even his closest followers were missing the point entirely. As they got closer to Jerusalem, they started getting really excited. They're thinking, this is it, the political takeover. Two of them, James and John, actually go and ask him for the best seats in the new government, the positions of the highest power.
So to correct this exact expectation, this idea that a political kingdom was about to appear any second, Jesus tells one last crucial parable. It's called the parable of the pounds, and it's all about a nobleman who goes away for a long time before he returns as king. The message was pretty clear. Hey guys, don't expect an immediate coronation. The kingdom isn't going to show up the way you think as soon as we get to Jerusalem. There's a period of waiting and faithfulness that has to happen first.
And that really brings us to our final question, doesn't it? This whole journey was just one big clash of expectations. The authorities saw a threat to their power, his followers saw a political liberator who was about to take a throne, but every parable, every healing, every single encounter on that final road to Jerusalem pointed to something far more radical. A kingdom built not on power and position, but on humility, on sacrifice, and on love for the lost. So if he wasn't the king they were all expecting, what kind of king was he? And what kind of kingdom was he actually building? That's the question this final journey forces every single one of us to confront.